very critical.
I forgot to start recording at the beginning. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And in addition to that, I do agree that there is a difference between different nationalities that are here in the United States and how they're perceived and their perception. There is a caste system because Asians typically have not had the experience that African Americans have had in this country.
Well, I would say there is no one, whether it's there is no
correct. Correct.
Yeah,
correct. There's no other.
So that's not
correct. I won't say. I'm just speaking to your example, and I'm saying
I got you.
Yes, absolutely. There's no other population that has had the experience that African Americans have had in this country, and so typically our responses, again to your point, will be much lower because of the experience that we've had with slavery, civil rights, and all.
Yeah, well, that's what. Yes, for sure. That's white supremacy, Lisa. So thank you for that. Anyone else with a comment? Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else with a comment?
I have a comment.
All right, give me your name and where you're zooming in from.
Hi, I'm Nicola. I'm phoning in from Manchester, England. Yeah, I do. I have an organisation called Parents United Against Racism. My son is mixed race, and I was horrified about what he has put up through the UK education system. And the reason I was horrified was because of my white privilege. You know, I thought we'd all moved on, and it's not until I had a mixed race child that I realised it's as bad now as it's always been. Mm-hmm. But the point I wanted to make was I first heard the term white privilege about 6 years ago at a women's equality party event, and it's something that a lot of people still don't understand today. The fact that they can just walk out the door and not even think about having to second guess every situation that they come across. So I just want to say hello to everyone, and that I'm delighted to be here having meaningful conversations about race.
Well, thank you for being here. Anyone else with a comment?
Hi, my name is Farah. I'm from Malaysia, but I live in the UK, in Oxford.
Okay. Nice to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It was interesting to hear about how the culture with Asian Americans with Asian people in America, because I've never been to America before, but maybe I have a different experience because I'm Asian and Muslim. Okay. So it's a little bit like when you opened up about the Asian topic being more accepted than the African Americans in America, that's a bit, it saddens me a bit. But I'm just here to learn and get cultured about everything going around the world. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Anyone else with a comment?
I would like to say something. So,
okay,
my name is Matthias, and I'm zooming in from California.
Do you have video?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Hey.
So I am Latino. I am Mexican on both sides of my family, but I would consider myself to be white passing in some situations. Like I have a pretty lighter skin tone compared to the other people in my family.
Okay.
And it just goes to show, even though I am a person of color, I don't have the same experiences that my family members might have. Like my sister tells me stories about how she's been racially profiled in the past, and it's really frustrating to hear. And it's just crazy to think that even though I am a person of color, because I don't have those features that are associated with being Latino, or some of the features associated with being Latino, I don't have that same experience.
Yeah, lighter skin. It's all about the lighter skin, and race is a made up construct. It is not. It is made up. It's not based on science. It's not based on DNA. And, it is a tool of white supremacy, period. There's no ifs, ands, nor buts about that. For those of you who are asking about an incentive, we don't provide any incentives. We are here to provide. Our incentives is the information you get when you are here with us for these 2 hours. All right, and that's somebody posted that, you know, we get a lot of trolls, we get a lot of hate mail. So someone posted that somewhere. I wish someone could, if they want to donate Amazon gift cards to give out to everybody, feel free to do that, but we don't provide it. All right, so let's go ahead and get,
Can I say something real quick? Sorry.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then can I go after?
What did you say?
I think the
I'm gonna let
gentleman,
you go.
yeah, he'd like to go after me, I think he said.
Oh, okay, Nick, go ahead.
How you doing? I'm Nick. I'm a Japanese American. I live in Maine, USA.
Okay.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to have you.
Thank you, thank you. I just had a few questions about the questionnaire and you know, kind of what we've been talking about so far. My grandmother, you know, she's 100% Japanese. You know, I observed how she grew up, and she told me about how she grew up. And, you know, I think the time frame is very important. And when we talk about, you know, discrimination and persecution, and, you know, what happened 100 years ago is obviously different than what's happening today.
Actually, it's not. So let's not do that. Yeah, no, it's not different.
Okay.
White supremacy and racism has been the same since the first ship of African Americans that were brought to this country.
So you're saying that ships are still coming here with Black people? I'm confused.
The systemic racism, the tools of racism, of white supremacy, they're still in place. And it's good for you to be here so you can learn that, because you can look that up yourself, Nick. You have a cell phone. Cell phone is one of the most powerful computers they've made for us. And
that's
so
why I'm here again.
Yeah, that's why I want you to
I
learn.
found it myself.
Yeah,
but so when you say it's the same, I guess my definition of same would be different, because something that's the same to me would mean that, you know, to your example, that Black people are still coming over on ships, you know, and I almost think that now people are doing that by choice, by immigrating to America instead of being forced to.
Yeah, but let me help you with that. Sure. So when you talk about immigration, well, Black people are not immigrants. We were kidnapped, stolen, taken from Africa, and brought to the United States to build it, free labor.
Right, I'm just saying today.
Wait, no, let me finish, don't interrupt me. To build this country, right? So all of you all, anybody else, have immigrated here to find the American dream that we built for you all to enjoy. Are we clear? And you can look that up. You don't have to take my word for it. You can Google it. But Nick, we're gonna move on because you have a energy that I don't want to deal with. Because the things that you're asking, you can look that up.
Yeah. That's why I asked about a time frame. Was all I asked.
No, I'm just saying there's an energy, and we want to keep moving.
Is the energy in my face and what I look like?
See, there you go. What does that have anything to do with it? And you know what? Simply because you made that comment, I'm gonna boot you out. We don't we don't want you here.
No, Cheryle, can I just say something?
Yeah.
It's my colonial ancestors that committed these atrocities by getting really rich on the back of enslaved people.
Yeah.
Today in the United Kingdom, the policies that are in government and in our infrastructure put Black people on a lesser footing than white to do with the colonialism. So you say that the ships, we're not shipping people anymore. Thousands and thousands of people come to this country on small boats every year to escape their routes.
We're not talking about that type of, right, but we're not talking about, those are two totally different things. So
I'm sorry, Sherry. I'll let you get on. Sorry.
Yeah, please, thank you. We're not gonna talk about all others. This is called Come Meet a Black Person. This is not come meet all other immigrants. So we're not going to have a discussion about boats of people trying to come to America to find the American dream. We're not going to have that discussion. Yes. So you can put it, right now, I'm done with questions until we finish some of the other things we're going to present. How about that? If you want to discuss something, you can put it in chat and I'll be responding as we move on with the programming. But we do have an agenda and we're going to keep on that. Okay. So if you have something to say, put it in chat. And then after we watch a video here and there, you have an opportunity to make any comments, but we're not going to go through. We're going to stay on agenda. So thank you. All right, so right now we want to move on over. How many of you all, thank you for taking that. We have a poll now that I would like for you all to take. If you click on your 3 dots, there is a link, should be a link for polls. These polls are anonymous. You don't have to, we don't know who is actually taking the poll. I want you to answer those questions and then we're gonna keep it moving. And thank you. You know, race is a topic that we all have something to say about it, but we have an agenda for a Come Meet a Black Person for those of you who are new. And we do offer opportunities for conversations, but the basics, the foundation of what white supremacy and racism is and comparing it to this and that, we don't do that discussion. You can go somewhere else and have that. What we are providing you with are anti-racism tools to deal with what we all are faced, the umbrella white supremacy. So thank you. All right, so I see most of you have taken the test. I'm gonna keep it open for another 60 seconds. Thank you very much for you to take that. All right, so thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna close out the poll. Thank you. And I'm gonna share the results. It's so funny when white supremacy, white privilege boots his head. And that's a good thing because we are here to have these discussions, but it's about education. And we are gonna keep moving. All right, so many of you, those of you who are not in the United States, you see the poll there. It shows that most support affirmative action. That's great. And most are from the United States. And most are non-Black. All right, thank you for that. All right, so those in the United States definitely have probably, I cannot assume, have heard about the Supreme Court striking down affirmative action, right? So thank you. If you have, go ahead and clear out your hands. Are you telling me yes, I'm trying to make sure, we had the hands up from the white privilege test. So let's take your hand down and if you know about affirmative action, yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, look, you are, and I forgot to even give ground rules. So let me give those anyway. This is a very focused discussion. I run it. And so, as I said a few minutes ago, we have an agenda and we're going to follow that. It's not a session for you to vent on what you feel racially, huh? It is here for you to learn from what I'm bringing because I don't get paid for this. I'm doing this to help you white people out, and to also let my non-white and non-Black folks understand where we as Black and African Americans experience life, and for you to recognize that everybody does not experience life the same way white people do. That's the main thing. And instead of living in the world in conscious oblivion of everybody else is the problem. That's why we have racism today, why it won't be wiped out, because of this is a white people problem, and only white people can solve it. Only thing we're doing is bringing the information to you so you can open up your eyes and see the real world, as opposed to being blinded by white supremacy. And
No, I'm not offended, but it can technically go both ways, and I've seen it in my life.
All right, so Mike, we're gonna keep moving. And again, if you have something to say, you put it in chat, dude. And if you can't follow that rule, I will boot you out. All right, so how many of you all know Jill Scott? Anybody ever heard of Jill Scott, the singer? No? Okay. Well, those of you, I'm sure many people have. Now, what about taking a knee? You remember when Kaepernick was taking a knee for the United States national anthem? And you all familiar with that? All right, that is because we as African Americans, American descendants of slaves, Black people, we do not feel the United States is our country. So, and this is for you all who don't have any Black friends, for you to also understand another perspective, another POV, point of view. So I want to share this with you. It's very short. Oh, make sure everybody has pen and paper, something to write down with, so that you will be able to. First, I'm going to share the lyrics, but yeah, please. Yeah, we just had a great session about. All right, I just gave you Jill Scott's lyrics. She blackened, I call it blacknified. She blacknified the Star Spangled Banner, the United States national anthem, from a Black person's perspective. And I want to share that with you. And then we're going to hear from Jane Elliott a bit about racism. And then we're going to move into the conversation about affirmative action. And we'll close out with Christine Jacobson, who is a woman that was raised white and at 65 got her DNA done and now knows she's Black. And she is written a book. She has great anti-racism thoughts and perspective and how she's moving now. So let's get into this and see what we're working with. All right, so this is Jill Scott. This just took place last weekend.
How to escape the heat if you don't have an air conditioner?
Sorry.
This only takes 5 minutes.
This took place last weekend in New Orleans during an event, the Essence Festival, something that's held every year. I'm going to share my screen. You can let me know if you can see the screen. Once I start sharing it. So you have the words. So I gave you the words so you can kind of follow along with Jill Scott as she sings it. Can you see? You can shake your head if you see it. Okay, cool.
will say, can you see? By the blood in the streets, that this place doesn't smile on you, colored child, whose blood built this land with sweat and their hands. But you'll die in this place, and your memory reigns. Oh, say, does this truth hold any weight? This is not the land of the free, but the home of the slaves.
I'm gonna share, let me let you see me. I am going to share a link to the video. And I wanted to open with that today, because as we look at how times, I'm gonna put it in, how our current day has gone back decades. We're talking about things that we thought advances moving forward. Those types of things have been taken back. Roe versus Wade, the affirmative action being struck down. Now that just opens the door, give precedence to other knocking it down. And if you know history, or if you just take the time to use your cell phone and Google things, you will find that there are huge pockets of white people who never, ever wanted affirmative action. There is a mindset that if anything is given to Black people, particularly, or other so-called minorities, that takes away from whites, which takes away from white privilege. And just as a fact, and one thing you will learn about me, anything that I give to you in this space, you can always look it up. Don't take my word for it, because I'm giving you nothing but facts. I'm a front-end developer. I love research. I love statistics. I love numbers. And so with that being the case, if I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna make sure it's backed by facts and not by something somebody said or decided to write a book. So here's one fact I want to give you. Less than 10% of the world population is white. Over 90% of the world population is people of color. So how is it that there is even white supremacy. That is such a funny word to me, supremacy, because based on science, based on DNA, and in fact, I'm gonna go ahead and put a name in chat for you. It is Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She is a science doctor, MD, not a PhD. You need to, this is everything I'm giving you today are nuggets for you to look up and do your own research. So she has given us the DNA, the facts of what all of this, what white supremacy is. So when we talk about science and DNA, real things, genetics, white skin is the absence of melanin. When you know how you have different levels in the animal kingdom, and you have different levels of the animal kingdom. Having melanin is superior. That is at the top. Having white skin is a recessive gene. This is science, what I'm telling you. It's a recessive gene. It is inferior. It's related to albinism. Everything I'm saying, you can look it up. It's related to albinism. So there is nothing superior about having white skin. In fact, if you look medically, many of the ails, many nervous system things, they're found more in white skin than, melanin. So that's a fact. Let me spell it for you if you need help. But melanin, you look that up. That is something that places those with it at the top of the human chain when you talk about superiority based on DNA and science. All right, so I want to introduce you to Jane Elliott. How many of you all have heard of Jane Elliott? Have you heard of the brown eye, blue eye test? Okay, well, Jane Elliott is the person behind that. It's a very short clip. It's an older clip, but this is to show you how white supremacy operates and the brainwashing that comes with it. Our history books, these are all written with the purpose of white supremacy. They say history, his story. He who wins a war get to write their story. But right now we see critical race theory. You know why? White people don't want folks to know the real history of their ancestors, of them being total terrorists and killers, maiming everywhere they go. And that is something that's still happening now. That we see it every day. And that's why, white people are ashamed of it, but yet they love their white privilege. And what we want to get people to start thinking of everybody as just humans. That should be the only race, period. And so just so you know a bit about me, my family is the United Nations. My great-grandmama, Caucasian, European, white. My great-grandfather on the Dow's Road, Cherokee Indian. My daddy, American, Black American. My mama, Black American. But when you go back in my ancestry, I got 20-something% white. I'm Black, but I got that kind, my DNA says that. So, if it was reversed and it was Black people being oppressive to all non-Black people, I would be standing on the forefront for all non-Black people. You cannot judge a person by the color of their skin. That is just so ignorant to me. And for people, we all have been hoodwinked because we've been culturally conditioned to believe that nonsense. And trust me, it's all nonsense. So let's listen to Jane Elliott. She does, it's real quick. All the stuff I'm showing you is quick. And again, keep your pad and pencil so that, you know, as you are watching these things that pop in your mind, jot them down, not just for us, we do want to know that as well, but for you, something that you will think about beyond today. So let's do this. And you all, I teach computer coding. I'm a front-end developer. Just thought you might need to know that when I'm doing all of this and having issues with technology, it's not because I don't know it. All right, so let's watch this video and let's see what we got. This was really, you can tell by how the audience look, it's dated, but the content is what matters.
There's something wrong with us because we are colorless. Color is an important difference, folks. We are not the same on the inside, not only because we're different male and female. Black psychology isn't the same as white psychology. It doesn't mean it's better or worse, it's just different. Differences need not be seen as negative. They are positive, they are valuable. Folks, forget the melting pot theory. It would never work, it shouldn't have to work. It ought to be all right to be different. It ought to be all right for us to be male, female, tall, short, fat, thin, old, young, black, white, brown, yellow, whatever. The differences are important. Think of this country as a salad bowl. How many of you make salad by throwing the green peppers, the red peppers, the tomatoes, the lettuce, the celery, the onions into a blender, blending them up, pouring them in glasses, and passing them around with various kinds of dressing? You want all the components in that salad to maintain their flavor, their shape, their size, their texture, their color, because it makes for a more interesting whole. This audience is a very interesting group because of the differences. It really bothers me when I talk to all-white groups, because, folks, there's no such thing as an all-white group. You all have the same great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparent back there 280,000 years ago, and she was a black female.
Why the maps? Why the maps?
Well, because people who are racist, in this country, we're all racist. White folks are all racist. We don't understand where it comes from. You can't cure it if you don't recognize that you have it. We all are infected with racism. We are taught to be racist in the schools. And here's just one example. Will you hold this up here, please? How many of you have ever seen a map that looked like this before? How many of you have ever seen this map?
Seen that map.
Isn't this the map that you use K through 16 in the United States of America? Now, folks, look at this map. According to your social studies teacher, what is the equator?
Right
An imaginary line where?
Yeah.
Around the center of the earth. Then if this map is correct, then the equator must be here, and Chicago has a tropical climate. Now, folks, this is the map that we use in the schools. Look where the United States is, in the middle of the world, right? Now, here's the USSR, which is no more, of course, Mongolia, China, Africa, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Now, look over here. USSR, Mongolia, China, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Twin Indias here. We have 2 Indias. Did you know that? Now, people, this is a flat-out lie. Look at the size of Greenland and the size of South America. According to your social studies teachers, what were continents? Largest land masses on the face of the earth, right? Now, do you know the continents? Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, Europe, North America, and South America. Did I say Greenland? Well, Greenland isn't a continent, but it's a huge landmass according to this map, right? The map is a flat-out lie, people. If you read the legend on the map, here it says, in fact, South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland. Now, look at this map. The equator on this map is down here. All the white countries are larger than they should be, and all the countries of people of color are smaller than they should be. This is a visual image that teaches children a lie. In order to make this map anywhere near accurate, you have to take this over here and put it here like this. Now, well, can somebody hold that? Can you hold that down there, somebody? Are you a somebody?
Sally is a somebody.
Okay,
yeah.
Sally's a somebody. There. Now, take a look at the difference. Does that give you a different visual image of the importance of the United States? People, the way you use things like this, teaching aids like this, are what make you and I racist. We were taught that this is the way the world looks. It's a flat out lie. How could a parent not be a racist? How could a white parent not be a racist in a situation in which we do that? I am a racist. I was born into a racist society. I was taught how to be a racist at birth. I know how to be a racist. I hate it. I hate the fact that when I read an article in the paper about a crime, I immediately think, God, please don't let it have been a black person who did it. Because immediately I will get a call from somebody saying, well, one of your people did it again. I'm a racist. I was infected with racism at birth. I want to get over it. It is going to take me the rest of my life to get over it, but I can do it. But I have to choose to do it. I choose to do it. Now, this is a new world map that was made by a cartographer called Arno Peters. This is the Peters projection map. Folks, it's for sale for like $10.95. I'm not the front man for Arno Peters. I want you to know that. This map, the land areas are correct. The shapes are distorted, but the land areas are correct. If we use this map in school, it would give children a different visual image of the size, the shape, the relative importance of the countries of the world. Would it be unreasonable to ask teachers to put this map?
Okay, she was about to end. I wanted to finish, stop that, because the main purpose was, anybody understand what I'm sure you all did, understand about what she was saying of white supremacy, and that, white people are racist just because they're white. And there are, and before we finish, when we look at Christine Jacobson, it's gonna read, you're gonna really hear it even better. Okay, let's go back to the agenda. We are going to now, let's talk about the Supreme Court ending affirmative action in college admission. At the beginning, I talked about how, law works on precedents. So once a precedent is established, then other people can use that to go after other levels of equality under affirmative action. So I'm gonna walk you through, we're gonna go through 3 short videos. When we finish, we're gonna come back and talk about it. Actually, it's 4. Oh, yeah, but they're quick. But let's hop right into it, and it's gonna give you a perspective. That's all I'm saying, and then we'll talk about the perspective that it gives. And I'll share these links with you all as well. I'm gonna share my screen.
Welcome to the News Hour. The U.S. Supreme Court today dealt a major blow to affirmative action in higher education, striking down race-conscious admissions programs at Harvard University and the University of North Carolina.
In rulings divided along ideological lines, the court's 6-justice conservative majority said the schools discriminated against white and Asian American applicants by using race-conscious policies that benefited students from underrepresented backgrounds. Chief Justice John Roberts, who has long been skeptical of such policies, authored the majority opinion. He wrote, "Many universities have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges bested, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Our constitutional history does not tolerate that choice."
This afternoon at the White House, President Joe Biden criticized the rulings and said the country cannot abandon its pursuit of a more equal system of higher education.
I know today's court decision is a severe disappointment to so many people, including me, but we cannot let the decision be a permanent setback for the country. We need to keep an open door of opportunities.
We start our coverage tonight with NewsHour Supreme Court analyst Marcia Coyle. Marcia, it's great to have you here.
Nice to be here, Jeff.
And we should say this ruling was not unexpected, but the court twice upheld race-conscious college admissions programs in the past 20 years, to include as recently as 2016. Help us understand how this ruling today upends decades of its own precedents.
Well, there has really been a fundamental divide on the court for almost 40 years on the constitutionality of race preferences. The conservatives believe that they are unconstitutional. The liberal justices feel that race preferences that are benign, that do give benefits, are good. And the court has said that's one of the very, very few reasons that the Constitution will allow race preferences. So that's why today it did upend, in a sense, what it had been doing for many decades.
I want to read a bit more from Chief Justice Roberts' opinion. In the majority opinion, he notes, nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. So some people have taken that to mean that an applicant could write an essay about how race affected his or her life. But in the court's opinion, how does the use of affirmative action in college admission practices run afoul of the Constitution?
Well, they cannot use it as a factor in admissions. It can't be a dominant factor or the determinative factor. It cannot be a plus factor. It cannot be used in a negative way. But the court did sort of leave the door open, and I think everyone's going to have to wait and see how this plays out, to admissions applications or essays in which an applicant talks about or discusses how race really affected that person's life, whether inspirational or not.
Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson recused herself from the Harvard case because she had served for years on one of Harvard's governing bodies, but she participated in the North Carolina case, and she wrote a scathing dissent, part of which reads this way: with "let them eat cake" obliviousness, today the majority pulls the ripcord and announces color blindness for all by legal fiat. But deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. Tell us more about what she wrote alongside what we heard from Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who also dissented.
Well, both of them believe that there's nothing in the text of the 14th Amendment that prohibits racial preferences or race-conscious measures. And they both oppose this idea of a colorblind constitution. This is something Justice Thomas has been advocating for decades. In fact, today was sort of his crowning achievement that it's finally been recognized by the majority. Justice Jackson used her dissent to very specifically address how the University of North Carolina's admissions policy worked and how its policy has really inured to the benefit of everybody, not just those students who were getting the racial preference. And she also felt, as Justice Sotomayor did, that the court was ignoring the facts of life on the ground in order to impose this colorblind rule.
Marcia Coyle, thank you so much for your analysis. We appreciate it.
Okay, so that gave you a bit of information about it. So let's keep it moving. We're gonna move on to a comment from Olay. And then we are going to go on to an action that happened as two actions that happened immediately as a result of the overturning of affirmative action in college admissions. Now I'm gonna put her name in here, and we're only gonna play the first 4 minutes of her, but here's information. I'm putting her video. You can watch the entire segment when you get an opportunity. But for right now, we're gonna, let's check this out. Now remember to give us your notes. To write down your notes. I'm going to share my screen. Everybody can see it. Somebody shake your head if you can. Nicola, okay.
We need to talk about white women and white women's role and where we find ourselves at today in society. And I don't mean that as an indictment of you white women, but I mean that like y'all need to call a fucking meeting and convene amongst yourselves, because this isn't actually the rest of us problem or anything the rest of us could do. Because white women are the only marginalized or minority group in their mind that vote that vote overwhelmingly Republican. Ones voting in service or better yet, in disservice of your own interests. White women are the reason why fucking Roe and abortion is no longer a right, which again impacts them most. And same thing now with affirmative action, which again impacts them. Depending on how you slice it, it's white women's fault if you think about it as RBG should have retired when people asked her to. Here's the thing. America's a racist country, so things will disproportionately impact Black, brown, and marginalized people. But the reality is white women treat abortion as their flagship issue. They act like that's the epitome of a white feminist issue, but look at them. Look at them. Overwhelmingly. Anyway, child. Way. Amy Coney Barrett, RBG. That's for them too.
Thank you, Ole.
Have to say that too. I'd be like, thank you, Ole. All right, so I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that comment. And make sure you put in chat as you are watching the videos, discuss among yourselves. And that's one of the things with this session. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to show my video. With the session is that I hope that you all will talk to each other, share your email addresses, find out if you are close to one another. You can virtually, I mean, we can talk to anybody anywhere at any time. So you all should, if you're going to become anti-racism advocates, you should be able to talk to one another, talk about what has worked for you all, because I tell everybody, start with your immediate family, then work your way out to your social network. Racism is something that, you know, I tell my kids when I'm teaching them, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And the same way you have to approach advocacy, anti-racism advocacy. All right, let's keep it moving because I want to give us time to talk. All right, so that was her. Now, you know, we talked about the Supreme Court knocking down affirmative action in college admissions, saying that, oh, the Asians are the ones that brought this lawsuit, but it was funded and of course been pushed forever by white folks. All right, so this is the response. And, you know, it's like they were in my brain because I was saying this, I said, okay, so this is how we need to address it, because it is my firm belief, and really statistics shows it. Money and the law, suing is the only thing that's going to get you your repair, your reparations, your made back whole. And that's how we have to approach, you know, from a community, Black community, we have to approach it that way. And I think that is going to be one of the biggest tools, anti-racism tools that we have at our hand. Hit them in the pocket, come with those lawsuits that again hits them in the pocket. That's the only thing that's gonna, we're not looking to change all racist minds. We just want to change how they operate. That's all. I could care less how you feel about me, but as long as you treat me with respect, me and mine and my money, then I'm good with you. We can share all of this, but don't come with no nonsense or you're gonna have a problem with me. And that's the way all of us should feel. I don't care what what box you check as far as race. We all should feel that way just as humans, and we should treat each other, you know, it's corny, but it's the truth. We should treat each other just as we want to be treated, period. And that shouldn't be hard. It makes your life much easier and all of that. And we'll talk briefly about the duality of being Black. You know, I got a white girlfriend, quick story. She always whined, you know, she always got issues, but that's her. I love her to death, but that's her. All right, so she was whining one day talking about how hard her life was that morning. And I wasn't in the mood. And I said to her, you know what? You always talking about how hard being a human and life is for you. Imagine me, boo. I said, I have to wake up every morning with the same challenges that you have as just being a human, just in living. But I also have the duality of that when I wake up, I have to put on my armor to finesse whiteness in order to make sure I come home alive. So do you understand that duality? And she bust out crying. And I'm telling you, I think when I said that, I unleashed the warrior, the anti-racism warrior in her. It was like a light bulb just came off came on in top of her head. She was like, I never really thought about that. I'm so sorry that I never looked at it that way. So that's what I tell all non-Black people, that this is reality for us. Folks will say, why do you talk about race all the time? I talk about race all the time because race affects me 24/7, which is all the time. All right, so let's go to the next. And me telling you all that is for you, just like that the white privilege test is for you to think about how other people experience life. All right, let's go. Okay, I'm sharing my screen.
A new lawsuit against Harvard University is taking aim at legacy admissions, what's also been dubbed affirmative action for the rich. Now, 3 minority advocacy groups are accusing the school of discrimination by giving preferential treatment to the children of wealthy donors and alumni, who of course are overwhelmingly rich and also overwhelmingly white. And they're citing the recent US Supreme Court ruling against affirmative action to bolster their lawsuit. The lawsuit, filed by the Lawyers for Civil Rights Group on behalf of the Chica Project, the African Community Economic Development of New England, and the Greater Boston Latino Network, alleges the students who receive that preferential treatment are overwhelmingly white and make up as much as 15% of admitted students. Now, Lawyers for Civil Rights said in a news release that this preferential treatment has nothing to do with an applicant's merit. Instead, it is an unfair and unearned benefit that is conferred solely based on the family that the applicant is born into. This custom, pattern, and practice is exclusatory and discriminatory. It severely disadvantages and harms applicants of color. Now, of course, the lawsuit comes right after the Supreme Court handed down a decision deeming affirmative action unconstitutional in college admissions, ruling that schools can no longer take race into consideration as a specific basis for accepting a candidate. The lawsuit cited that ruling and quoted the Supreme Court's majority, which said college admissions are zero-sum and a benefit provided to some applicants, but not to others, necessarily advantages the former at the expense of the latter. Now, the plaintiffs allege that a portion of the white students admitted to the school because of donor and legacy preferences would not be admitted otherwise, which would increase admissions opportunities for applicants of color. The numbers suggest that they're right, so let's get into those numbers. The records revealed that 70% of Harvard's donor-related and legacy applicants are white, and it's blatantly obvious from admissions data that the children of alumni and donors are way more likely to be accepted.
They found that for the class of 2026, just under 2,000 applicants gained admission out of an applicant pool of more than 61,000. But look at that admission rate. 3.24% is minuscule. But it's very, very different if you are related to someone who has donated to Harvard or if you have a parent or relative who went. For donors, those applicants were 7 times more likely to be admitted with an admissions rate of 42%. If you have a parent or relative who went to Harvard, you were 6 times more likely than an ordinary student to be admitted for an acceptance rate of 33%.
If you're a homeowner in Georgia and you're still paying for electricity, then you could be missing out on free government assistance to go solar.
6 to 7 times more likely to be admitted. And we're not talking about small differences around the edges. There's a clear advantage to these legacy families who tend to be wealthy and white. So what actions do these organizations suing Harvard want the government to take? Well, in their lawsuit, the plaintiffs have called on the US Department of Education to, among other things, investigate Harvard's use of donor and legacy preferences and the resulting unjustified disparate impact, and ensure that moving forward, applicants have no way to identify a familial relationship in the admissions process. Ivan Espinoza Madrigal is the executive director of Lawyers for Civil Rights and is one of the attorneys representing the plaintiffs. He says, quote, why are we rewarding children for privileges and advantages occurred by prior generations? Your family's last name and the size of your bank account are not a measure of merit and should have no bearing on the college admissions process. And look, let's be clear. Legacy admissions are absolutely not only a problem at Harvard. Okay, there are other schools that are using this, although the exact number of schools that use legacy preferences is unknown. But a survey by Inside Higher Ed in 2018 found that 42% of private schools, including most of the nation's elite institutions and 6% of public schools, used the strategy. An Associated Press survey of the nation's most selective colleges last year found that legacy students in the freshman class ranged from 4% to 23%. At 4 schools, Notre Dame, USC, Cornell, and Dartmouth, legacy students outnumbered Black students. So why do elite schools do this? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. It's about the money. Supporters of the policy say it builds an alumni community and encourages donations. A 2022 study of an undisclosed college in the Northeast found that legacy students were more likely to make donations, but at a cost to diversity. The vast majority were white. Unlike these school leaders, the public is overwhelmingly against legacy admissions. In fact, a poll released last year by the Pew Research Center found that an increasing share of the public, a whopping 75%, believed that legacy preferences should not be a factor in who was admitted to college. And look, I think it's pretty easy to understand why the majority of Americans feel that way. I mean, first of all, if you're gonna say that college admissions are merit-based, legacy admissions really do fly in the face of that. And when education is sold to the American public as the great equalizer, how can you make that argument when you are giving preferential treatment to children who come from wealthy families or applicants who come from wealthy families? I mean, it's so brazenly obvious that all they're trying to do is increase the likelihood of future donations. But will anything actually be done about this? Probably not, but Biden is pretending like there will be some action. So look, the Office for Civil Rights of the Education Department, which would review the complaint, may already be gearing up to investigate. In a statement after the Supreme Court decision, President Biden said he would ask the department to examine practices like legacy admissions and other systems that expand privilege instead of opportunities. And look, we all know that Biden really loves to study the issues until we forget about the issues. So don't let him forget about it. I think this is something that we should continue pushing the Biden administration on, and I'm very happy to see that this lawsuit is moving forward. Now, beside that lawsuit, there is a separate campaign, and I love this as well, urging the alumni of 30 elite colleges to withhold donations until their schools end legacy admissions. And here at TYT, we have our own petition that you can participate in. Go to tyt.com.
Okay. So wanted to show you that one, but I want to rock and roll because I see my time behind by just a little bit. So that show, video. So that showed, I believe, the lawsuit that came right out, and I'm telling you, they were definitely in my mind. It made me feel good that there are so many folks who are high vibrators, who are now thinking of how to use their own system. When I said their, I'm talking about white people. To use their own systems against them. That's called critical thinking. You know, they are trying not to teach our kids and us, many other generations, critical thinking. But this is a time that we all need to be critical thinkers or listen to those who are tapped in and vibrating high enough to understand what's going on. Okay, so now, we're looking good. I want to share with you. Now, the lawsuit was brought on by Asians. And this was Asians saying that they weren't able to get in because of affirmative action. So let's listen to this. Because a number of intellectuals told us when we first heard that this was going to be reviewed by the Supreme Court, immediately said, oh, but they don't understand. And, when you look at statistics, again, I love numbers, I love stats. We see that white women have been the biggest benefactor of affirmative action. Did y'all know that? Don't believe me, but you can Google that. All right, so let's move to our next one. And again, take notes, please. Please shake your head if you can see the screen.
Well, it did not take long, ladies and gentlemen, that the Asian community is complaining about alleged racism. Now, they're complaining about alleged racism in tech jobs. Now, remember, it was people like Yatin Chu that helped lead the charge with Students for Fair Admissions to strike down affirmative action in college admissions. She said that she has been on a quest to do this, and she is happy that it was done. But as I said before, when you play footsies with white supremacy, it always gonna turn on you. Now let's get into what they're complaining about now. So they were saying that a lot of them have worked at Disney, Google, and Twitter. This one woman named Vaishnavi Jayakumar joined Facebook and Instagram on a Meta in January 2020. Interesting time. Now they say her job, was on the youth policy team, was to protect children and teens from bullying, harassment, and other forms of abuse. But Jaya Kumar, originally from Singapore, says she couldn't shield herself from racial bias on the job. Well, what racial bias? What are y'all talking about? There's no racial bias or anything like that. I mean, clearly there's not, because you were fighting about affirmative action, and affirmative action was created so black people can have a chance to get in certain spaces, because we were denied those things due to the color of our skin. And see, when you play yourself, Asian community, in white supremacy, these are the things that has happened. As they soon after inquiring how she could move up at Meta, Jaya Kumar says her supervisor began leaving her out of opportunities and initiatives that used to be in her scope and layering her under less experienced employees. Now, where have I seen that before? Where have I even heard that before? Oh, yeah, black people. Yeah, we have experienced that. But when you try to get with white supremacy and say, well, they treat me just a lot better than the blacks, so I'm going to stay over here with team white supremacy. I'm going to join the white supremacists against black people. And the whole time they've been dogging you out with racism. You see, how does that work? But let's continue. And say, despite years of experience and positive feedback as a team player, Jaya Kumar says her supervisor told her she was not senior or collaborative enough to be promoted. As according to a complaint Jaya Kumar filed with the California Civil Rights Department, and say while her workload and responsibility increased, Jaya Kumar says her performance ratings begin to slip. Well, I'm laughing because these people, they don't know no other way to be. And you new people that show up in America, you think, oh, well, I got more education than black people. Oh, I come from a 2-parent household. Oh, I got more money. It don't matter in white supremacy. You think black people don't have 2-parent households? You think black people aren't smart? You think black people can't pass an SAT or ACT? You think black people can't do all these requirements to get into these colleges and universities? Black people's position in America is engineered by design. It's not organic. And white folks' position in America is engineered by design. It's not organic, okay? And it's maintained through military and police, along with the politicians. That's how it's maintained. Asians are a buffer group. And in the system of white supremacy, yes, they will be treated better, but they also not going to be treated with the level of white folk. And instead of them realizing that and saying, you know what, I need to get with black people, because black people, if I have a problem, the black people come to my defense. These other group of people not gonna come to my defense, not whatsoever. And this is how y'all played yourself. You played yourself. Let's continue. The woman says, I've never felt more keenly that as an Asian woman, I'm destined to be a worker. She said, I'm not destined to be a leader, she said. And that's an awful feeling. Yeah, it is. When you go to a job every day, you smarter than everybody else there. And they hire the dumbest remedial white supremacists. They get you to train them. And then they be your supervisor in 6 months. That is really demeaning and humiliating. But y'all thought y'all knew better. Jaya Kumar is one of the growing number of Asian Americans in the tech industry breaking their silence and going public, and say with charges of discrimination and retaliation. And say in a series of recently filed lawsuits, they say that racial bias is spanning decades in Silicon Valley that typecast Asian Americans as worker bees have shut them out of management and executive positions with greater power, profile, and pay. And they do the same thing to black people. And they've been doing that to black people. But once again, I'm going to keep interjecting this. Y'all in California, y'all was going against black folks in California when they talked about affirmative action and other programs to benefit black people. Y'all did that. They had a state, West Coast state, I think it's Washington State. During the time of the pandemic, they had legislator wanted to set aside money for black-owned businesses in Washington State. It was a Hispanic and Asians and a white person all sued to try to stop black people from getting money for black-owned business. Y'all was a part of that too. See, this is why you're on your own with this. See, you're on your own dealing with the beast. You can't come this way. You can't. The only way you'll be able to come this way, unless you are an individual that put in a lot of work and have proven yourself to be a ally for real, then we have no problem siding with an individual, but just whole groups, no. Now, I say the pattern of discrimination experienced by Mrs. Cheryle Kumar mirrors that faced by a broader Asian community. Others make assumptions about what work Asian Americans are suited for. Cheryle Kumar's complaint said Asian Americans are unsupported in the workplace in taking on leadership opportunities. Yeah, just like black folk. I say through her lawyer, Cheryle Kumar is demanding that Meta make policy changes from tracking the rates of promotion for Asian Americans to training managers in tropes and stereotypes about Asian American employees. Meta declined to comment. See, this is where you messed up. See, when you fought to get affirmative action overturned with college admissions, you know that's going to bleed into jobs. You see, when the Supreme Court said about race neutral policies, then Meta really don't have to do any race neutral policies anymore, because that's what you guys fought for. They don't have to create nothing just specifically for Asian Americans anymore. You understand? Because we all need to be race neutral. We all need to be colorblind. And we know what colorblind really means. So yeah.
Have you seen that new slimming chocolate has been going viral on TikTok? It's getting a lot of attention because some people are.
So y'all got to eat that cake. Let's continue. It said, ever since changes in the immigration law lifted restrictions on people of Asian descent, especially those who are highly educated and skilled, it said Asians and Asian Americans have made up a significant portion of engineers and other professionals in the tech industry, but not managers and executives. And that's another thing, Asian community. Let me say this. There are black Americans who are literally shut out of tech. I mean, black Americans, last time I read, only represent about 1% of the whole tech industry. Not because black Americans are not educated, don't have desire for tech. No, they're systemically shut out. And if they do let black people in, they make sure to bring in African and Caribbean immigrants over the descendants of slaves. That's another thing. If they do have some blacks, they're going to make sure those blacks aren't from the soil. And why do they do that? Because people who aren't from the soil don't have that fight in them like the descendants of slaves have. Because we're not going to sit there and just let them do certain things to us without fighting back in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And they know this. That's why they don't want to deal with us. So 3 of the nation's most valuable tech companies are run by Asian American CEOs. Alphabet's Sundar Pichai, they said Microsoft's Satya Nadella, and NVIDIA's Jensen Huang are the exception, not the rule. They continue to say research shows that Asian Americans are the most likely to be hired in professional roles, yet the least likely of all racial groups to break into the tech company leadership. Say, in fact, in some companies like Meta, people of Asian descent outnumber white employees, but their numbers fall off sharply in leadership roles. They say at Meta, 46% of employees were Asian American in 2021, the most recent year but for which data is available, but just 27% of executives. White employees, on the other hand, account for 39%, let's say, of Meta's workforce, but 58% of its executives. So check this out. You're almost half the company. Meta can say, we're not racist, because if we were racist, we wouldn't have half our company being Asian American or Asians in general. The people that are complaining, their work just didn't cut it. And we do things by merit. And the people who are in leadership, they could do the job and they got there by merit, right? You see where the merit conversation start going? See, y'all played right into the white supremacist hand and you have hurt yourself. Because see, they're not hiring us. And neither have you spoke up about that. You say, hey, wait a minute. Where's the black people at? Why are we the only ones here? There's no black people in tech? Why are they the minority in this? But you had no problem with y'all getting all the tech jobs. That was no problem. But because the white supremacists pulling rank on you and let you know, yeah, you can work here, but you're not running a thing. Now you want to get mad and you want to go file lawsuits. And since now you've said everything is race neutral and those sort of things, well, it's starting to seem like when you don't get what you want, you go file lawsuits. Like you couldn't get into colleges because you blame black people. You went file a lawsuit about that. Fine. The black boogeyman was removed. Now you can't get a promotion in a company that is not a guaranteed right for you. A private company don't have to give you nothing more than your paycheck that you earned. So it seemed like you like to file lawsuits if you don't get your way. I'm just saying how people are looking at it, because you said that you didn't want any kind of affirmative action and handouts and all this stuff to go to black people. So, hey, we got to take it like that. So they continue to say that the tech industry has made progress in becoming more racially diverse in the workforce, but has virtually made no progress in becoming more racially equitable in its leadership pipeline, said a Buck Gee. He's an executive advisor to Ascend Foundation, the nation's largest network of Asian American professionals. And said when he worked for Cisco, he asked for the racial breakdown of the employees. He's identified as having a high leadership potential, and found that just 15% was Asian and Pacific Islander, despite comprising of 60% of the workforce. So at Cisco, 60%, well more than half of the workforce was Asians. Cisco is another company that could say they're not racist or discriminatory because the majority of the employees is Asian. So if they had a problem with Asians, then why would they hire 60%? He said until he raised the issue, no one noticed. He said people falsely assume the problem would fix itself. Now, he said Gee blames benign neglect. That's what he blames. He said a pattern of systemic bias that rewards leadership traits typically associated with white men, but not women and minorities. Stop it. I told y'all with that word women, that means white women. White women are over you, sir. White women are in high positions because they are number two in white supremacy. First is the white man, and then it's the white woman. It's just that simple. And the white woman has conned all of y'all to make you think that she is just dealing with so many issues and problems. She is the biggest benefactor of what happens in the system of white supremacy. She will go against what she feels that she needs to stay in league with white supremacy. And she has proven that to y'all election cycle after election cycle after election cycle. Now, I say Asian Americans, they say, are left out of diversity discussions and initiatives because there's a perception they don't face adversity in the workplace. Say when, in fact, the economic realities for Asians and Asian Americans vary greatly, so particularly for those in low wage and low opportunity jobs on H-1B visas, said a Pawan Dingra. It's a president of the Association of Asian American Studies, president and a professor at Amherst College. Well, the reason why people look at you that way is because when you're filing lawsuits about affirmative action and you're filing lawsuits about black people getting government funding for a business, then at that moment, people put you in the white category, that you're more aligned with white supremacy. So when you see, it's cool to get aligned with white supremacy when it's all going good. But when it's not going good, now all of a sudden you want to start talking about discrimination and, oh, you're being overlooked with diversity, whatever. Well, see, you chose the side you want to be on. And you got a lot of suffering you're going to have to go through with white supremacy. And once again, I'm going to tell you, don't look this way to black people, because you have established yourself as a group of people that don't like black folk, want to harm black folk, because that's what you did. You did something to harm black people. You harm black people so you could benefit from it. Bottom line, that's what you did. The white supremacists saw your thirst to try to get into these schools. You feel like you deserve it, which a school that has a 4% acceptance rate. And you see, if you go to Harvard's website, there's a lot of Asians at Harvard. There's more Asians at Harvard than there is blacks. And yet you still went and done that. Now they continue to say Asians are seen as an immigrant group that in many ways is doing pretty well. It said there is not a major movement, they said, to worry about the plight of Asian Americans outside of hate crimes on the street. And Asian Americans was used by the Democrat Party to push a propaganda. I know good and well hate crimes against Asians is still happening. No, what happened to the white supremacists that went into that illicit massage parlor and shot up the place? You notice the white media not talking about that? That's a form of domestic terrorism. That was a horrible attack on Asian people. White supremacy gonna take care of itself. It don't matter what it do to you, blacks, or anybody else. But once again, as a collective of people, I'm not saying individual people, as a collective of people, you chose to side with the white supremacists. Now, Justin Zhu, it said the ex-CEO of a tech startup, Iterable, it said, who is suing his former company and co-founded the nonprofit organization Stand With Asian Americans to help others in a similar situation. Zhu says he filed a lawsuit alleging retaliation. And he says he was fired for raising complaints about anti-Asian discrimination. It said investors on the Iterable board of directors told Zhu that he didn't look like a CEO and wanted Zhu's white chief operating officer to take his place, according to Zhu. I'm just straight laughing. I'm laughing not because of what they told him, because that sounds like a classic white supremacist to me. Like a CEO to them is a white person, not you. But you also see, Asian community, how that integration thing don't work. You thought you was gonna come here, side with the white supremacists, integrate yourself. See, the thing is, if y'all would all come talk to black people when you first get to this country and get a real education on white supremacy, you would have learned not to do what you did. You'd have learned. We would have told you that the white supremacist is the biggest backstabber ever. If he's breathing, he's lying. We would have told you that. We would have told you build your own companies, build your own institutions. Don't worry about going to Harvard. Build your own version of Harvard. See, we would have told you that. But you come over here to this country, look down on us and say, why they want to go to those low rate HBCUs? Why they build, why they want this, why they want that? Now you see why. Now you see why. But let's continue. It said Iterable denies allegations, saying its current CEO and co-founder is an Asian American entrepreneur, and that Zhu was terminated for multiple instances of violating the company's policies and values. And the thing is about that, they got a paper trail on him. Wait till you go to court, you'll see. He said, not everyone has a resource to fight back, Zhu says, so Stand With Asian Americans launching a workplace justice initiative. Now, Ben Hyun, it says his troubles began in May of 2022 when he was promoted into the management ranks at software company Coda. Ben says he didn't get a pay increase with the promotion, unlike his peers, and believed he was earning less than his peers, so he complained to Human Resources.
If you're in professional coaching or B2B consulting, do you know you can make $50K per month or more using LinkedIn?
Human Resources. They say, despite the quality of my work, once I've spoken out, the gates began closing around me. You know, he's a Vietnamese American. He said, I felt iced out and like a pariah. Yeah, I bet you did. That's happened to many black people. They say something, they retaliate. See, a lot of you groups that come to this country, once again, you come in here, make a deal with the devil. Hey, if you let me in, I'll be anti-black, just as like you. We could have saved you with all that trouble. We could have saved you if you just came, sit down, talk with us, broke bread, you know, like make some sort of alliance with Black America. But no, you didn't want to do that. And now you're suffering the hard way. Now, Ben said he had trouble sleeping. He started grinding his teeth and having panic attacks. Yeah, racism, white supremacy can have those effects on you. They said in August 2022, he was told the company was disbanding his team and he was being demoted. When he asked why, his supervisor made vague criticisms, saying he had weak leadership skills. Now, Ben says he went to human resource, said if I was November, he was laid off. He said Ben says he was told that it was not performance related, that the company was reorganizing. Yeah, because the white supremacists want you to suffer in silence. That's what they like to do. And when you speak up, just understand you better be prepared for them to let you go for some reason. But see, the thing is, if you actually dealt with it like Black people and you knew how to sue them federally for doing things like that, then you would have had them already, right? Now, they said, but Ben and another person who worked for him were the only two employees let go. So they say they restructured, but they only let him and one other person go. And I'm pretty sure the other person was Asian too, that maybe spoke up or sided with him. Yep, classic white supremacists. Now, I said Coda did not respond to requests for comment. And they say that there is a shift because people are seeing that they have to take actions or things will not change. Now, Ben, he filed a lawsuit against Coda in June, alleging discrimination and retaliation based on race. It said, if we want to see something change, it said we have to do something about it. But once again, it goes back to what I said earlier. When y'all went fighting and constantly fighting Black people constantly about affirmative action and race, we shouldn't be doing nothing on race, and you got on team white supremacy, now you jump back over and talk about something about race? Can't do that. Just maybe you just didn't do the job right. Maybe you violated company policies. Maybe you just can't complain like that because it's not about race, right? It's about merit.
That's right. It's not about race. It's about merit. So everything different folks experience who are non-white, it still falls under what African Americans and other Blacks have been experiencing. Experiencing long before any of these other folks that immigrate, because we are not immigrants, who immigrate to the United States, come here looking to assimilate into whiteness or support whiteness, looking to do anything other than be classified as far as race as Black. You know, next month we'll be talking about one of the points on the agenda is talking about how people would say, well, those who are mixed with Black, who are African, who will say, oh, I'm mixed, I'm biracial. And, you know, folks will, just because of white supremacy and how it culturally conditions everyone to think that Black is at the bottom. So let me check anything other than Black in many cases. But that's part of the psychology, the psychosis of racism. That's a whole nother discussion. So what I want to share with you all, and then we'll have an open discussion. You can make a comment on either one of the things that we discussed. But there's a young lady, Christine Jacobson, and at 65, well, she's always lived the life of a white woman. And at 65, she took a DNA test and found out that she was Black. You know, when they say the 1-drop rule or whatever, I think she's 25, 30% African. And that's the thing about the Black, quote, Black African culture. You know, we make up all the colors, starting from the darkest to the lightest. That's science. That's archaeologists. This is all based on physical facts, not something somebody wrote in a book and decided to change things and put it out as being facts, but actually based on verifiable things, you know, verifiable. I like verifiable. I need to physically, I need to be able to see what I'm working with. Anybody tell me something, I always ask why. And everybody should start asking why instead of just believing what you are told to be true. And that's why critical race, the fight about that, the fight on teaching real history is going on. But Christine Jacobson, her journey is just, anyway, you'll watch it and then we'll talk about it. But she is one, we're going to use it as our book of the month. And we're asking folks to read it. I don't know nothing about her, don't know it all. I only know about her from her book. And so I'm just going to encourage, if you're really serious about what this space means, it would be great, if you're white, it would be great for you to listen to her. You can Google her. And this is because, I say this because I consider her a science project. I've said that before. I consider her a science project. I want to do biology on her mind because she has lived a white life. And now that she knows she's Black, it's a whole different paradigm of the mind that she's having to finesse. I mean, I want to know about it. But anyway, I'm gonna share my screen.
Hello, I'm Erin Palmer, Team Racine Productions co-host and moderator. Joining us today is Christine Jacobson. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Erin.
How are you doing today?
Very good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for being here today. Before we get started talking about your book, Dancing Around the Truth, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. It's really an honor to be able to talk about my experience in my book and hopefully help some other people that may be going through the same thing. And I wrote my book trying to make sense of the DNA surprise that I had in 2018. And I published it during the pandemic, and it's been doing quite well. And it's wonderful to be able to speak to people on social media about my experience.
That's wonderful. Please tell us a little bit about the title of the book, Dancing Around the Truth, and what the inspiration was for the title.
So Dancing Around the Truth was definitely inspired by how dance is so prevalent in my life. I was a professional dancer, and when I did the DNA discovery, I found out that my biological father was a dancer, as was my biological grandmother and grandfather, so my bio dad's parents. And my bio dad's parents, my grandparents, were professional dancers during the Harlem Renaissance, and they were known as the Negro Estairs. And then my biological father was known throughout the United States as a dancer throughout the 1950s and 60s. And then he went overseas and continued to work there. And I was, as I said, a professional dancer. I was in the Broadway show 42nd Street. So dancing, I knew, had to be in the title. When I designed the jacket, I also felt like it represented dancing. And then it took on a deeper meaning because I realized that my mother was dancing around the truth of my biological heritage. And I came to realize that I danced around the truth in terms of how I viewed myself as a white person.
Please tell us about the general premise of the book and how that relates to the title in terms of dancing around the truth.
Well, the general premise is that I discovered that I was biracial and at the age of 65. And so I had a racial reckoning at the same time that our country was having a racial reckoning. And I felt like, as I said earlier, that I danced around the truth of how I thought of myself as one of the good white people, and how I came to realize that I had a lot of internalized racism that I had never really owned up to before. So that was the journey that I went on in writing the book.
The book contains themes of internal bias and white privilege and what you just mentioned of the concept of being a good white person. Can you talk a little bit more about those themes and how they play out through the book and what they mean to you personally?
Again, as I said, I thought I was one of the good white people. My parents were very progressive for the 1960s, but later on I sort of came to realize that their form of progressiveness maybe even had a little bit of fetishization to it and tokenism, and they loved Black people, and Black people were always in my house. They loved Black musicians, and so I thought, yeah, this is how I grew up. And my parents were Danish, and the Danish are historically known as very tolerant of religions and cultures, other cultures, and they were. Maybe not so much now, but they were. Mm. And so I had this lifelong belief that, you know, I'm not racist. You know, other people might be racist, but I'm not racist. And that, you know, really resonated throughout the writing of the book, and definitely during George Floyd's murder and the reckoning that was happening in this country at the same time. And the disconnect, the fracture of my identity, in that I wanted to honor my biological heritage, yet I had been raised as this white woman. And as my son reminded me, you grew up white mom, you had white parents, you had all the white privilege. There's no way that you can be Black. There's just no way that that can happen. I think he was really a little bit worried about me going Rachel Dolezal on him. So there was a moment where, you know, I wanted to embrace my newfound culture. I wanted to wear head wraps, and I wanted to wear ethnic clothing. And that was the first time I had been made aware of that there's such a thing as appropriation. Maybe I had heard it, but I didn't really understand it. So there was a lot of deep learning that went on after my discovery and in the process of writing the book. Deep learning about African-American culture and the more well-known African-American writers and thinkers of both in the 20s, 30s, and all the way up to today.
I love that concept of deep learning, and not just the self-reflective part, but that it can take place across generations with our children, that's part of how we learn and grow as adults in terms of communicating with the next generation and our children, and that can take place across those boundaries. I think one of the interesting things about the book is the discussion and question around let's talk about race, and how you discovered that some of the response to that is for people to say that they're tired of talking about race. And that is a pretty common phenomenon. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that and tell us how you respond when people say that they are tired of talking about race.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big eye-opener for me as well, because I also lived in this kind of fantasy land that we were in a post-racial culture, a post-racial time after Obama. And yes, I think I say in my book, where was I when all those people were talking about race? Because I was never having conversations about race until it became part of my identity and I had a deep vested interest in learning about it. What I've done personally to deal with that, because it really was difficult for me to find people that I could talk to about race, both Black and white. And I joined an anti-racism group, and we meet twice a month, and we've been doing that for 2 years. And that has helped me tremendously in being able to verbalize how I feel about race, and being able to talk about times when the awareness comes up that I've either said something racist or had a racist thought, or some of my misperceptions and biases. And we discuss those things. And that has been extremely valuable for me, to be able to speak about what I'm learning in terms of racism. And yeah, if somebody said that to me today, you know, I'm tired of talking about race, I just listen. I listen with a lot of love. I listen with a lot of tolerance, and try to interject whatever the conversation may be about, what I've learned, and perhaps be an inspiration just based on the fact that I've done all this learning as a white woman.
I think part of what's interesting is that the work of anti-racism is continuous, that there, in my opinion, is not a fixed endpoint. So I'm wondering if you can talk about how you continue the work of anti-racism and how you catch and call yourself in when you're confronting potential racism in your internal sphere and internal circles.
Yeah, I've definitely gone on a trajectory with it, because initially I was very like, I'm going to cure racism. I've got the answer now. And I am going to, you know, like point out when you're being racist or, you know, biased. And that didn't go over very well. Nobody wants to hear that. No white person wants to hear it. And so I kind of swung back with joining the anti-racism group to reflecting and getting more knowledgeable about my oppression, how I oppress myself, how I oppress others, and developed more of a tolerance for when people are speaking in racist terms. A lot of times I will approach people with a level of curiosity. If they say something racist, I'll ask them, what makes you feel that way? Or why are you saying that kind of a thing? Maybe not even that, that's a little judgmental, but mostly I would just approach them with curiosity. Why do you feel that way? I've stopped really trying to give lessons. I think that was what I initially tried to do, but to try to help people become aware. That I think that's the only thing that I can do, is help people to become aware that there are other viewpoints, that there are other ways of thinking about something that a lot of us think is a very fixed point of view.
That's interesting. How has writing this book changed you? What's different about you now?
Writing was always something that I had wanted to do. It was, when I wrote the memoir, it was to try to make sense of what was happening to me. And it really went in a whole other direction, and it has helped me to continue to learn and to be interested and focused on learning about other cultures, learning about my place in the world as a white person with other cultures and marginalized people. And it really has opened me up in a way that nothing else had.
So what has been the reaction to the book, personal and public? Anything that has stood out to you?
I have a friend who calls me his fairy godmother because I gave him my book and he read it and he said, I'm going to go get a DNA test. And he did, and he discovered that he had 2 sons, and one of whom has now given him a grandchild. And he was a sperm donor, but he had no idea that he had children in the world. So, I mean, that's one aspect that just really warms my heart. I'm very happy when that happens. I haven't had really any pushback, and I guess I'm pretty lucky that way.
Do you have any plans for future works or anything else that this inspired in you for future creations?
Well, I definitely feel like I want to continue to explore the journey that I'm on in terms of anti-racism. And so that's something I'm working on. And then I'm also working on a piece of fiction.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm hoping that you can share with us how people can learn more about you, how they can learn more about your book, Dancing Around the Truth, and where they can buy your book as well.
Yes. Well, my website is christinefromqueens.com. And my book is available on amazon.com in both audiobook format.
Oh, okay. So that is, you all can, I put it in chat how to find Christine's book. And I also put the link to that video. But if you Google her name, a lot of things will pop up, PR, news stuff, videos, other videos will pop up as well. So at this point, I would like to hear comments. Anyone have a comment about what we are covered? We are running a bit over. Oh, I want to thank you all for the great comments and interaction that you all have been doing in chat. That is definitely vital to the discussion. Did anyone learn anything different? Anything new? Excuse me. Did anyone learn anything new today that they didn't know? If so, put it in chat. Or does anybody have a comment that they want to make? This is a time for you. You can put your
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. You can put your hand up if you want to speak. You all, you know, the reaction hand. Go ahead, Terry. Oh, you're fine. Turn your mic on. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay. Well, I had a lot to say. I'm just going to respond. There was something that someone said in the chat. They said that
Okay, but let me put down some ground rules. We'll give you 1 minute to okay, yeah.
All right.
Okay. I'm trying to see if we can get as many people to speak as possible.
Yeah, they talked about, they said that they mentioned in their class that Jesus was white, and a class that it was racist. There was
what are you talking about?
There was a comment in the chat that someone made about Jesus, and they said the teacher asked if Jesus was white, and one of the kids said that Jesus was white, and the kids and the students.
Okay, let me stop you, Terry.
Call them racist.
Okay. Okay, and someone called them racist?
Yeah, because he said that Jesus was white. And
all right, well, look, the discussion on the race of Jesus is not part of my agenda.
no, that's not what I'm speaking of. I just had a similar situation.
Okay, but we want to talk about the things that we're covering.
Okay, so I'm gonna
The videos
put
that we
myself on
discussed.
mute.
That's what we want to talk about.
I want to put myself on mute and you finish discussing. Okay,
All right.
I'll just listen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with a comment about what was covered today? Our topic was about affirmative action. We talked about, and that's the purpose of the chat, for you all to interact with one another. We are here to learn from each other. And so if something is said that's crass or, offensive in here, you can let me know, because I will boot somebody out. I have no problem doing that. But I hope that you all will have discussion, and if somebody is saying something that we feel is fundamentally wrong, somebody should check that person in chat. I will say this is not a space to talk about religion, period. And so if somebody says anything about religion, I will boot you out. That's not on my agenda. That's not what we are talking about. This is anti-racism.
Cheryle, can you?
Yeah, so let's do that. All right, so Jennifer, you can go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm not.
We can hear you.
Okay. First of all, this has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I love this discussion. I'm a brown person, so I have one foot in the white world and one foot in the Black world. I moved to Vancouver, Canada, I don't know, 20 years ago. And the first thing I said was, where are all the Black people? Like, why, where did they go? So, this is something I'm very conscious of. And I'm from Panama, which is very diverse. We have all the colors. And in Spanish, we say, oh, she's cinnamon, or he's coffee with cream, or, so it's not like but there is racism, don't get me wrong. But, I remember when I was in college, sitting with my Black friends, and one of my friends had been stopped by the cops. And he said he was leaving the gym and he was wearing a hoodie. And I said, well, why would you wear a hoodie? You're Black. Like, why would you, invite that? And then I realized that was awful, but it was out of my ignorance of, like, we all have a right. We all have a right to look the way we want. And since then, I thought, well, my family's from India. If I want to wear a sari to work, I have the right. So this is such an interesting discussion for me, because I've been very ignorant, but then in the last several years, I've become much more color conscious. And I feel like I do get angry with any kind of racism. So I just wanted to share that this is such a great discussion and gives me a lot of food for thought. And I hope to be a better advocate. I have one more thing to say.
Yes.
The Lululemon in Kitsilano in Vancouver put a sign up saying Black Lives Matter. And I got really mad because there were no Black lives there anyway.
Anyway. That's a great point. Thank you.
Like, what the hell? Then, like, Black Lives Matter, but there aren't any. So anyway, thank you.
All of that, yeah, that's fake DEI. That's what we say about it. Thank you so much. All right, who else? Let me see. Silmodel.
I know it was going to go like that. Hi, it's Somadel. I'm a Black woman from Canada.
Do you have video?
I don't have video right now. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'm a Black woman in Canada. I do anti-racism work around mental health and Black people as recognizing racism as a social determinant of health of all levels, including spiritual health. So I'm wondering from the white people here, you know, I'm always wanting to know, and I'm assuming that this is somewhat of a quasi-safe space. When we speak about racism to white people and you start crying or getting upset or feeling bad, what would you suggest that we do in response to that? Thank you.
Well, that's a great question. Anyone white want to respond?
I don't mind responding.
Okay, go ahead, Nicola.
I get this all the time as a white woman speaking about racial injustice, and white people just shut down the conversation all the time because it makes them feel uncomfortable. And I just point out to them that they are feeling uncomfortable in this moment, yet the racial trauma that people feel is lifelong and life limited. So they need to speak about racism. I've had this conversation so many times. If the conversation stops with white people not wanting to talk about race and racism, how can there ever be progression and learning? So when someone's trying to stop you in your tracks, they need to you need to tell them about how effective this is on damaging people's lives.
No, I want to hear from them. You know, thank you. I really appreciate the work you do. Thank you so much. But I want to hear from them. Thank you.
What you mean hear from them? She's white.
No, I'm saying she's right, absolutely. But the perspective from which she's coming from it as an anti-racism activist, a woman who says, you know what, I know that this injustice is wrong. And she works on that.
You want to hear from somebody that.
Yes, thank you.
Well, we can see if anyone else want to speak to that. And, you know, this is a safe space, and it is not about, you know, we're not doing any confrontations. Folks don't want
Hello, this is Krista. I'm calling out of Arizona, and I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm getting a graduate degree in substance abuse counseling. Well, I facilitated a group, and there was 2 white males and 2 Latinx young ladies. And I brought up the topic of white privilege. Did you know about it? And pretty much the Latinx young ladies were the ones that discussed what their experiences have been with oppression and racism and whatnot. And my 2 white gentlemen were silent. They just did not say a thing. And then I later talked to one of them, who's my client, and he just said, well, that whole thing made me feel really uncomfortable. I said, well, you know, that's part of change. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, so go ahead.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead, Amy.
Hi. Well, I have not ever.
You.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'm up here. Can you see me?
Oh,
okay, good. Oh, I guess it's how I have my view thing. Anyway, I work with. Well, I'm an AmeriCorps service member that serves with an organization called Rural Action, which is in Southeast Ohio, and the organization, its mission is to lift and serve underserved Appalachian folks in Southeast Ohio and a little bit beyond. And the minority population in Southeast Ohio is much smaller than where I moved from in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I lived and worked in really, really very diverse neighborhoods for most of my adult life. And so Rural Action, they're extremely progressive. And so they have an active anti-racism program that goes on there. And so I'm learning a lot there, but I've never been in a conversation with anybody where I was talking about it, because I feel like anytime somebody is telling me their experience that I could have never had in my lifetime because of my white privilege, I always like respect that space, that every single thing they're telling me is completely 100% valid and true. And
well,
so
that's because it's that person's experience.
right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I've
so-
never been in a situation where I got like all clammy and shut up about it, because
well, that's good.
Yeah.
You
So,
are-
so
yeah,
I don't know what to tell people to say or how to approach me with things, because I'm just like completely like the energy just keeps circling between two people who are communicating. And I guess I've never been in a situation where I was like really like uncomfortable, because when I worked in the inner city of Cincinnati
you
for
have.
10 years.
Yes, you have. You have. As a white person, there have been instances in your life where something racially, you were confronted with that. Yes, you have. Now, we like truth and transparency, but if you are a white person, you have definitely experienced that. So thank you, Amy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep on moving. And what I wanted to say, it's 5:23, and I do thank you all. I had one thing. How many of you all know about the Karen Hunter show? And do you know about Ellie? I want to close with this. We took the white privilege test. We have watched videos, and we covered a lot of topics. But in closing out, we just talked to Christine, and I know I'm running behind, but if you would stick with me for just one more video. And what I would like for you all to do for, the next weeks in the future, from coming here today, I want you to really think about some of the things that sparked you. That, how they say, you put a notepad of something throughout today stood out for you, that a light bulb, yeah. Whatever was the light bulb that has come on for you today. I want to ask the Most High to impart upon you the courage to seek that out. Right now, I'm talking to all white people. I'm also talking to those who are pushing a white agenda, that because you came here to understand and to, be re-educated, because all of us, again, have been culturally conditioned to believe this stuff. And so now it's time to unlearn that and re-educate yourself. So hopefully something, sparked the interest, and using your cell phone, computer, whatever, just go on a journey. I'm telling you, you take the first step, the Most High, the universe is going to guide you on your journey of learning, simply because you have put out that you want to do better or know better, and all of that. Okay, so I want to share this with you. There is so much about where we are as people, and at this point, the decay of us, our morality, our empathy, our sincere loving on each other. Child, please. Anyway, let me just do this, and I hope that I have given you all something today. But I do want to close with this. Thank you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I run my fingers through her hair as she smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one who loves thing is the one who loving?
Ellie Mastal is in the building. Hi.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to talk amongst friends on this sad day.
Yeah, I was like, come on in. What you doing today? You were like, what time? I was like, come on, let's go. For you, Angie says she stays angry.
Yeah.
Where are you with this? We saw it coming. We knew this was going to happen, but now that it has happened, how do you feel? And then tell me what you think.
I mean, look, I've known I was going to have to deal with this decision for probably the past 20, 25 years. In my personal travels, let's put it like this. In my travels, nothing has pissed white people off, white liberals off, quite like affirmative action. You can name any other policy, and the thing that will rankle under their skin is this idea that somehow their privileged, private tutored cherubs might not get an extra bump over some Black person who they are sure is taking their kid's spot at an elite college or university. They have zero-summed gamed this to the point that they think that any Black person that is in an elite college probably didn't deserve to get there over their kid. And so with that as the setup, and this is what I wrote about in The Nation, with that as the setup, the idea that this policy was coming down from the Supreme Court has been, I think, part of my consciousness, like I said, for at least the past 20 years, because they hate it so much. It was almost inevitable that eventually a predominantly white Supreme Court, with the help of their boy, Uncle Clarence Thomas, would do this.
So
Absolutely.
now that we're here, my position is, I knew this was coming. I think you're absolutely right. First week that I showed up at Drew, somebody told me I was just there because of a program. And then that set the framework for my next 4 years, because did I have fun. I was like, that's what the last thing you want to say to me. But I feel like, not everyone should have a fighting spirit. We shouldn't go to school to fight. We shouldn't feel less than or bad, or we shouldn't have to defend ourselves when we're in these spaces. We are bringing value just by bringing ourselves into all of these spaces. So I'm like, let them eat cake. At this point, you want to munch on the privilege of your whiteness, then you can do that, and you're going to miss all your seasoning. So good luck with that rice with no curry. Don't put no curry, no jerk. Don't eat nothing. Just keep your bland white rice with no salt, because you also don't know how to use that properly, and see how that turns out. I feel like they're going to find out that this diversity thing is actually beneficial to their little cherubs. And the absence of that is going to actually destroy their ability to be a well-rounded human being.
Well, that's why colleges and universities, especially the good ones, especially the elite ones, will do everything in their power to keep as much diversity as possible. Because the people who run those colleges and universities, predominantly white people who are in charge, understand that the educational environment is better for everybody if the classes are more diverse, and they will do everything in their power to try to keep as much diversity as possible. And we see, I'm not just speaking out of the back of my side, right? We see evidence for this in California. We see evidence for this in Michigan. In other states that have banned affirmative action at the state level, we see the elite universities in those states, the University of California, the University of Michigan, doing everything they can to still attract African-American students. It doesn't work nearly as well as it does.
No, it works much worse.
Right? It's much worse for everybody, but they're still going to try. So I don't think that they're going to stop trying because of the educational benefits of affirmative action. I think the problem is obviously that Black students who want to go to these elite universities, the applications, the acceptance rates are going to plummet. That's what we see in the evidence. But just to round out the point, Karen, there are not a lot of elite, rich, white parents who even want to send their kids to an all-white university, right? Or to not every parent not every white parent wants to send their kids to Baylor, right? Wants to send their kids to Pepperdine. Even the parents understand that some, diversity is good for their kids. They just don't want that diversity to take the spot away from their kid. That's what it always comes down to. Diversity for thee, not for me. Make sure that my white kid gets in. And that's always what this has been about.
Yeah, and I think when we shift our perspective to the Black students, they are going to really have to decide which institutions support them and apply accordingly. Because what the Supreme Court has done today is essentially said what you can't do. They did create a little carve out about what institutions may do, and that is consider race in a very narrow sense. If a student writes about race in their essay, but they have to write about it in such a way where they're explaining how race has impacted their experience and how it has impacted their character and what they can contribute to the institution. So what this creates now is a fork in the road. Institutions that care about diversity, like Ellie said, can choose to tailor their messaging to invite such essays that says to the applicant, hey, we are going to listen to you explain your experience, and you can talk about what you want, including race. Institutions that don't care about those Black students and brown students and Asian students and Indigenous students, they are going to not do that. Their messaging is going to be clear that you can't include any of this talk on your application. So we're going to have to be discerning. And by the way, as you're talking about your experience, Ellie, and the experience of students in higher education institutions, I'm thinking about my experience working at the law firm. I went to Howard. I went to an HBCU, undergrad and law school. Yet, when I went out there in the private sector in the world, what I got was, you're only here because of affirmative action, not higher ed affirmative action in hiring. And so you still encounter that. And that is going to be an issue still with respect to private institutions. They're also going to fall in line the same way. So we're going to see precipitous drops of diversity in those institutions as well. Not legally, but as a practical matter.
Oh, as long as there's one Black person who's let in, there will be one salty, mediocre white person who's kept out, who's like, not fair, it's only because they're Black. Like, that's always going to happen. But I want to say one point to Angie's point, pulling off of Angie's point with this idea, with this fail-safe that Roberts and the conservatives are using. Oh, you can still talk about race in your college essay. That is an incredible burden shift, right? In the law, we call this burden shifting. Like, who's responsible for doing this work? It takes the responsibility for understanding about racial diversity and equity away from the admissions counselors, basically, and puts it on the shoulder of an 18-year-old writing their college essay. This is a point that my wife actually made to me after the ruling that I think is really important that people need to understand. I didn't write about race in my college essay, because I had other things to write about. I had other things that I wanted to promote about myself and my character and my worthiness, right? The idea that I have to now waste time in my own college essay explaining to some admissions counselor how racism works in my life is an anathema to me. All right, it's not something that I should be required to do. It should be enough for the admissions counselor to take that burden and do that work. I shouldn't have to waste time in my precious, 1,500 word limit essay to explain to an admissions counselor how racism works in America. Are you kidding me? And especially as now at 45, I probably could, but as an 18-year-old, that's an incredible burden that Roberts and the conservative majority of the Supreme Court are just not only placing upon the shoulders of Black and brown 18-year-olds, but doing it as if that solves the problem they themselves created in this decision.
Can I ask, how this opinion has obviously the obvious effect now on higher education, but what are the ripple effects for this in other parts? Are there government programs that are going to be impacted by this? Or was this ruling narrowly tailored enough to just be about this? I'm going to guess no, but you tell me.
Well, I will say, like as a formal legal concept, this case is about this case. It's about UNC, it's about Harvard. But if you look at the summary, basically the intro to the opinion, the court understands and it tracks cases that flow from education cases, that extend to busing, that extend to public accommodations law. They are fully aware that this opinion is changing the course of society, even if they can sort of say technically it's only about Harvard UNC. Again, as I emphasized earlier, Harvard was the gold standard, not only for admissions programs across higher education, but recruiting committees and hiring committees in the private sector beyond higher education. So now every institution is thinking, we don't want to get sued. We better adapt. And they're following their lead from this case. The court knows that. And the court will cite this case in other contexts. So it's only a matter of time. They have laid out the rationale and now they can just refer back. So I think lawyers in general counsel's offices across the country know that, and we're going to see some changes in how they look at recruiting, hiring, admissions, etc.
It's like when you breach a hole in a castle, right? When you blast a hole in the wall, you don't have to tell the rest of the troops where to go. They see the hole. That's where they're going.
Oh, right. So good. Yeah.
So
Perfect.
866-801-8255. We're going to take some calls because I promised. Sina Gasnaby is here. Angie Marissa Porter is here. Ellie Mastal is here. I also had my team tweet out your Nation article that came out today as well. You went to Harvard, Ellie, and I imagine you were told by your parents that was the way to success, the pathway to success. You went to Harvard. Think you got your master's there and your law degree. Looking at this now, the value of that Harvard education provided what?
First of all, I didn't get a master's. I that was too much school for me.
I thought you had 2 degrees from Harvard.
Just the BA, just the undergraduate degree, and the law degree, not the 3rd degree. So just to be clear, what was the benefit of that to me? I'll tell you, really, it's really clear. I was a big law Manhattan lawyer. Right? That was what I was trained to do. That's what I was doing. And I hated it. And I decided, at 27 years old that I wanted to get into journalism. Didn't want to go to journalism school because, again, that's more school and that's more money. I just wanted to get into journalism. Well, how did I do that? I basically ended up sending out cover letters to 100 different magazines, news organizations, and in and around New York City. And I was like, I don't have any journalism experience, but I have 2 Harvard degrees and I'm willing to work for free. And I got a job, Karen. I got a job, right? And that kind of started me on what is now my career. If I was trying to pull that with Princeton, probably. If I was trying to pull that with the University of Michigan, maybe. But at some point, there is a thing that doesn't happen on my resume when I'm sending out that cover letter that makes most people say, bruh, go to journalism school if you want to be a journalist and get your funky cover letter out of my inbox.
Well, here's what you need to know. And this is something I tell my students because I teach journalism. Going to J school is absolutely the worst way to get into journalism.
Hey, we've covered the part I wanted you all to hear. That was my closing spiel, if you will. Any comments on that discussion? No? Yes? No? You can put it in chat if you are not comfortable with speaking. Well, I want to thank you all for hanging with me this amount of time. I hope you did gain some information and share it, please. And I'm gonna go downstairs and start cooking my Sunday dinner. I hope I get to see you all again. Oh, let me put my email. Oh, let me do my plugs. I'm sorry. All right. Pull up chat. I need your support. My name is Cheryle Renee Moses. My business is Cameras Creative Services. I'm a marketing, communication, entrepreneurship, designer, front-end developer, anything related to running a business, running and growing a business, operation and growing a business. All right, so I'm gonna put a few things in here now. You all, I would love to for you all to make any type of donation, or if you have a website, put a link to one of the links I'm putting in chat. All right, so I'm gonna give you just a quick rundown of what I do. My company I just told you about is Cameras Creative Services. The other one, that's my for-profit. I run several nonprofits. All right, so I am the founder and producer of the Urban Media Makers Film Festival. And this year is the 22nd year, 22, not 2, but 22. And it is an international film festival. Call for entries currently going on. And we have competitions for all types of content, you know, short films, features, animation, documentaries, web series, mobile films. We have commercials, competition for commercials, for photography, music videos. We even added a one for poetry, you know, live poetry. We also have, you know, women directors. It's a lot. We have a lot of categories. And again, this is our 22nd year, and the film festival runs for 14 days. It runs October 9th through the 22nd. All right, so I just sent you, okay, you see, I put me in that. All right. Now, I spoke to you briefly about my white ally. That's the website. Bam. So if you want to be a part of using your white privilege, and most of the stuff we do is virtual, or you just have to make phone calls. What we do, we take people who submit requests to have, you know, a front person, a white front person for whatever they're trying to do. And we just match you up, see who's available, and you all work out a little, you know, script, get information, you share the information that needs to be provided. And that's how you help. That's how you are able to use your white privilege. So would love for you all to support that. And last thing, I want you to think I'm a scatterbrain, but my last thing is Black Gwinnett magazine. And it is digital and print. So if you have a business, if you are doing an event, you want to promote it. Wait a minute. There you go. You can check that out. And I guess that's all that's all I'm gonna say to y'all today. Oh, let me give y'all a link here. I put it in chat, but I'm gonna do it again. Would love for you to make a donation. We're doing around, we pretty much kind of cover the Southeast. And donations are tax deductible. And that'll be it. If I can spell it. All right. Any questions? You can always reach me. Here's the email address. If you want to talk to me about anything or consultations, those are provided as well. Feel free to send me a note. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. You are really hung in here. We are 45 minutes late. Thank you all. I really appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your month. And if you have any questions or just want to check in, please send me an email. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining, Tiara.